She walked in the door laughing, soaked from the downpour outside, heels clicking on the tile, hair damp and wild like she'd just run through a field of chaos. Her eyes darted to me, sitting in the dark on the living room couch, and for a half second, they froze. Then she dropped her purse like it didn't matter and said, "You're being dramatic." That was the first thing she said to me. Not hi, not sorry, not even you're awake. You're being dramatic. I hadn't spoken a word yet. The only sound in the room was the cheap ceiling fan and the thunder rolling off in the distance like it was waiting for her to lie again. I sat there, still, small, the way I always get when I know I'm about to be told a story I didn't ask to hear. She reached for the hallway light. I said, "Don't." She froze. Her hand hovered in midair like we were in a painting called The Moment Everything Changed. "You told me you were going to the bookstore," I said. A pause. Then came the laugh again, this time quieter, more annoyed. "I did go." So I stood up, walked to her slowly. My socks were damp from the leaky window by the couch. Everything felt wet and cold and wrong. "There's no bookstore open at 10:45 p.m. on a Wednesday, Mira." She looked at me like I was a toddler holding a crayon, proud of discovering something obvious. "There was an event. A reading. Tyler invited me." Tyler. Like the name was supposed to slide through the room unnoticed. Like my heart hadn't stopped just hearing it. "He's in my photography group," she added, as if that fact washed the blood off the knife. She didn't flinch, didn't explain further, didn't apologize. She just slipped off her heels and padded into the kitchen like it was just another Wednesday. Like I wasn't crumbling behind her in the dark. I didn't scream. I didn't demand. I didn't cry. I just said the one sentence I'd been holding back for 3 months. "You're not going to see him again." She turned around slowly. Her face was unreadable, like a blank page with the outline of something dangerous just beneath it. And then she said the words that flipped the entire night upside down. "You don't get to tell me what to do anymore." That's when I knew. Not suspected. Knew. Something had happened. And whatever it was already too far gone. But what she didn't know was, I had already seen the receipt in her coat pocket. 2 glasses of wine. 1 entree. 1 dessert. 1 hotel. Booked for 2. So no, this wasn't just rain on her coat. This was the start of a storm I had every intention of dragging her through. I didn't sleep that night. She went to bed like nothing happened, slid under the duvet, and turned away from me like she always does when she doesn't want to be touched. Like my presence in that bed had become a formality, something decorative, something dead. I sat in the kitchen staring at the wrinkled receipt in my palm. 2 glasses of Barbera. 1 tiramisu. A room number scribbled in blue ink on the back with a little heart drawn next to it. It was the kind of detail that didn't just stab, it mocked. It told me this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-off. This was effort. Deliberate. Cute. And it wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the note on the receipt. "See you Thursday, same time," winky face. She had a schedule. A system. My wife had office hours for her affair. I stayed in that chair until the sun came up, listening to the pipes hum through the walls and wondering how many Thursday nights I'd spent here like an idiot, thinking she was at book club or browsing candles at Marsh and Pine. Meanwhile, she was wrapped up in hotel sheets with a man who probably didn't even know she was married. Or worse, did know, and just didn't care. I had always assumed if this ever happened, if she ever cheated, I'd pack a bag, storm out, maybe burn some clothes in the yard. But I didn't do any of that. I poured myself orange juice, toasted a bagel. I even fed the cat. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the can of wet food twice. And then, at 7:13 a.m., she walked into the kitchen wearing one of my shirts. The audacity. She kissed me on the cheek. It wasn't even a guilty kiss. It was absent, robotic, like kissing the coat rack before leaving the house. She didn't notice the receipt I had carefully placed on the counter. Didn't say a word. Just grabbed her laptop bag and said, "Don't forget the plumber's coming at 11. Like I wasn't unraveling inside. Like she hadn't just shattered 13 years of our life together with a receipt and a half-hearted emoji. She left. The door clicked shut. I heard her car reverse down the driveway like it always did. Normal. Routine. Predictable. But I wasn't the same man anymore. Something had cracked inside me, and not in the explosive, rage-filled way people expect. No, my crack was quiet. Cold. Dangerous in its stillness. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to scream at her or confront her or give her a speech she'd already rehearsed answers for. I wanted something worse. I wanted her to feel the kind of invisible betrayal she made me live with. The kind that doesn't hit all at once, but slowly, like a house rotting from the foundation up. So I did something she never expected. I made coffee, got dressed, went to work, smiled at people, sent emails. No signs of the tornado in my chest. And that night, I kissed her back. Genuinely. I made her pasta. I even massaged her shoulders while she watched TV. Because if Mira wanted to play house, I was going to give her the performance of a lifetime. She just didn't know I'd already canceled her credit card. She didn't know I'd already changed the password to our joint account. She didn't know I had already booked a hotel room on her usual night. Room 406. Same floor as hers. 2 doors down. And I was going to be there Thursday. I wasn't going for a confrontation. I was going to watch her knock. I was going to watch Tyler open the door. And then I was going to decide, in that exact moment, how far I was willing to go. Thursday came too slow and too fast at the same time. The days in between dragged like wet laundry on a cold line. But the moment my car pulled into the underground parking garage of the Belridge Hotel, my hands were already sweating through the leather steering wheel. I had parked here before. For our 5th anniversary. Same hotel. Different context. Back then, I was the man holding roses and a handwritten poem in his coat pocket. Now, I was holding a disposable flip phone and a deep, ugly question in my gut. What if she doesn't show up at all? What if she already knows I know? Room 406 was sterile, beige, unremarkable, the kind of place where things happen that nobody ever talks about. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't sit on the bed. I stood by the window for a full hour with the lights off, watching the front entrance of the hotel from 4 stories up like a man waiting for a prison break. At 8:57 p.m. she arrived. Red coat, heels, same smug laugh. She wasn't even pretending to hide it. If anything, she looked energized, youthful, like betrayal had exfoliated her soul. Tyler wasn't with her. That caught me off guard. She walked in alone, breezed past the front desk, and headed straight for the elevators like she had her own key to the building. Maybe she did. Maybe she'd been here so many times they just stopped checking. I moved quickly into the hallway, pressed myself flat against the wall as I cracked open the door to my room an inch, just enough to see her pass. She knocked on room 408. A pause. The door opened. I couldn't see who was inside, but I could hear her voice. "Missed you," she said softly, like it hurt her to say it. Then she slipped inside, and the door clicked shut. I stood there in the hallway, heartbeat in my throat, and realized something wasn't adding up. There was no laughter, no deep voice, no footsteps, just silence. I waited another minute. Nothing. Then 5 more. Still nothing. So I did something insane. I stepped out into the hallway, walked past room 408 like I was just another tired guest headed for the ice machine. And as I passed the door, I did what any man who has completely lost grip on his dignity might do. I pressed my ear to the wood. I expected moaning. Or maybe music. Maybe the creak of the bed frame. But instead, I heard crying. Not hers. His. And it wasn't Tyler. It was someone older. Wounded. The sobs were heavy, drawn out, like grief was pouring out in waves. I couldn't make out every word, but I heard snippets. "You said he'd never find out. I gave you everything. Why now, Mira, why now?" Then I heard her. Cold. Like ice. Because I'm not going to keep living a lie for someone who can't let go of the past. I backed away slowly, heart pounding in my temples. My knees felt like they might collapse. The voices faded as I returned to my room, mind racing through every possibility. That man wasn't Tyler. He sounded older, worn down, and he knew about me. She was juggling more than one secret. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't just some hot trainer who made her feel young. This was layered, complicated. And the look on her face when she kissed me on the cheek earlier that day, it wasn't smugness. It was guilt, yes, but it was something else too. Panic. I stayed up all night trying to piece it together. Who was the man in that room? How long had he been in the picture? And why had she lied about Tyler at all? Unless Tyler was the decoy. A smokescreen to distract me from the man she really didn't want me to find. The next morning, I received an email from our mortgage bank. A flagged login attempt from an unrecognized device in another state. It had her name on it. Then another notification. Our shared savings account had been accessed at 3:14 a.m. She was draining us. While I was lying 4 feet away in another room. I didn't react. Not yet. Instead, I printed the receipt again. I left it in the glove box of her car, exactly where she'd find it if she went anywhere that weekend. No note, no confrontation, just a breadcrumb. Something to let her know that the walls were beginning to shift around her. Slowly, invisibly, and she had no idea which way the collapse would come from. Because the thing about people like Mira, they never expect you to learn how to lie back. But I was learning fast. I thought I was in control. That's the most dangerous illusion a betrayed man can entertain. That silence equals power, that calm means advantage. But in reality, I was spinning. Quietly. Internally. Spinning so hard, I didn't even realize how deep the manipulation had gone until it was too late to just walk away. After Mira returned from her evening out with the girls, yes, that was her excuse this time. She acted like everything was back to normal. Like I hadn't caught her in a hotel room on a Thursday night. Like the universe had wiped the board clean and said, "Try again, kids." She cooked eggs the next morning. She asked about my coworker Tim's birthday party that weekend. She even folded my laundry, which she hadn't done in months. It was terrifying. That level of composure? That's not guilt. That's experience. She wasn't lying out of panic anymore. She was lying like a professional. Smooth. Efficient. Emotionally disconnected. Like she'd already rehearsed the version of the story she'd use if I ever confronted her. But I wasn't giving her that scene. Not yet. I wanted her to sweat under her own script. That weekend, while she was in the shower, I did something I'd never done in 13 years. I opened her laptop. It wasn't locked. That almost made me angrier. Because it meant she didn't even consider me a threat anymore. Not curious enough, not bold enough, not man enough to cross that line. And for 13 years, she was right. But not anymore. I didn't look for anything obvious. No inbox. No photos. I went straight to the system logs. Yeah, I taught myself how to do that at 3 a.m. on Reddit the night before. If you want to find what someone's hiding, don't look at what they say. Look at what they delete. Because no one clears a browser history unless they're scared of the past. The deletion trail started 3 months ago. Frequent logins to an encrypted messaging platform I'd never heard of, something niche, not even mainstream. And buried in the autofill? A name. Gideon. Who the hell still names someone Gideon? But it wasn't the name that struck me. It was the autofill tag underneath it. Gideon, attorney login, private. Attorney? I scrolled through more. Her downloads folder had PDFs, most recently trashed, then emptied, related to estate planning, power of attorney, and one chilling file I couldn't retrieve but saw the partial title of in a cache. Contingency_transfer_joint savings. PDF. She was preparing for something permanent. This wasn't about cheating anymore. She was planning an exit strategy. And worse, she had help. I looked up the name. Gideon D. Halbier. Nothing came up in state legal directories. No firm website. No bar association listing. No LinkedIn. No digital footprint whatsoever. Which, in this century, is like not existing at all. Unless someone doesn't want to be found. I started keeping a journal. I know how that sounds. Pathetic. A man scribbling in a notebook like a teen girl after her first breakup. But it helped. It made me organize the chaos in my head. Dates. Times. Logins. Conversations. Shifts in tone. Her changing sleep schedule. Her overly enthusiastic interest in decluttering for mental health. And still, I said nothing. But that Monday morning, something happened I hadn't anticipated. I got a call from my HR department. They said someone tried to access my payroll login from an IP address traced to a public library downtown, and failed 3 times. The kicker? They'd used Mira's maiden name as the password attempt. Not once. 3 times. I played dumb on the call. Thanked them. Told them I'd change my password. But when I hung up, my vision blurred from the blood pounding behind my eyes. She was trying to extract my income details. Not just hiding. Not just cheating. She was preparing to strip the walls bare and take the floorboards with her. That night, while she watched a documentary about cults on the couch, the irony not lost on me, I finally asked her, "Hey, do you know anyone named Gideon?" She didn't blink. She didn't stutter. She just said, "That's such an old school name." Why? Not a no. Not confusion. Just a redirect. She thought she still had control. And maybe she did, until she opened her car door the next morning and found a new receipt in the glove box. Not hers. Mine. For room 406. Dated the same night, she went to room 408. Let her try to explain that. Let her wonder what I saw. Because now the panic was hers to hold. and I had only just begun. She found it at 7:41 a.m. I know the exact time because I was watching her through the upstairs window, pretending to drink my coffee while she opened the car door in her navy blue trench coat, the one she only wears when she wants to look like she has everything together. I saw her pause. Her hand hovered in midair as she noticed the white slip folded neatly on the driver's seat. She picked it up, unfolded it, and I swear her breath fogged up the windshield from the inside. She stared at it for a long time, long enough that the morning frost on the rear window had already started melting. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. She didn't get in the car. She slammed the door, hard, and marched straight back into the house. I was already in the kitchen acting casual, swirling my coffee around like I had no idea what was coming. I didn't even look up when she stormed in. I heard the paper hit the counter with a violent slap. "What is this?" she asked, voice low, sharp, shaking. I glanced at it like it was an old receipt from CVS. "A bill," I said, then took a sip of my coffee. "Maybe it's yours." She blinked once, twice, then leaned forward like a prosecutor cross-examining a witness who had just outmaneuvered her. "You were at the Belridge Hotel?" "Yeah," I said casually. "Last week. Had a meeting." Her eyes flinched, barely. "A meeting? At 9 p.m. People have drinks," I shrugged. "It's a hospitality venue." "You don't drink." Maybe I started. Her mouth opened to say something, but nothing came out. For the first time since this entire dance began, she looked unprepared. Not guilty, not remorseful, just disoriented, like the choreography had changed mid-performance and she was no longer the lead. "I think we're past the part where you pretend I'm the problem here," she said finally, quieter now, almost pleading. I looked her straight in the eye. "I'm not pretending anything." She didn't respond, just stared at me, searching my face for cracks, inconsistencies, a clue that I was bluffing. But I wasn't, and she knew it. Later that day, she didn't go to work. She claimed she wasn't feeling well, made herself a cup of ginger tea, and retreated to the bedroom with her laptop. But I could hear her pacing from the hallway. I heard her take a call around 1:12 p.m. Her voice was a whisper. I couldn't catch most of it, but I heard one name clearly. Gideon. Not Tyler. Not my friend. Not even him. Gideon. I pressed my ear to the wall, heart hammering. "No, I don't know what he knows," she hissed. "But he left something in my car." No, not about you. About that night." "Yes, I think he was there." "No, I'm not panicking. Gideon, listen, we can't afford any loose threads right now." Loose threads. That phrase chilled me, because now it was obvious this wasn't just about sex. This wasn't about emotional detachment or midlife discontent. This was a strategy, a campaign, a quiet, elegant dismantling of everything I'd built with her, and she was doing it behind curtains and passwords and prepaid phones. I needed answers, and fast. That night, while she was asleep, I used a USB keylogger I ordered a week ago and installed it into her laptop. I know how it sounds, but you tell me what trust looks like when your wife is whispering with a ghost named man about loose threads. It took less than a minute to set up. The software would capture every keystroke the moment she logged in again. The next day, I waited. I acted normal. Picked up groceries. Sent emails. Laughed at a meme she showed me. She was playing nice again. I could feel her recalibrating, trying to gauge how much I actually knew. She was watching my every micro-expression like a hawk, but I'd grown quieter. And silence was my new weapon. That night, she typed, and the keylogger sent me everything. Most of it was nothing. Emails to clients. Some Pinterest searches for winter decor. But buried at 11:23 p.m. was a chat. Secure app. Encrypted. But the keystrokes were mine now. "Gideon, he's watching. You need to accelerate the transfer." "Mira, I'll get the rest of the documentation from the vault by Friday." "Gideon, no delays. He's too calm. That's dangerous." He was right. And then it came. "Gideon, does he know about the apartment?" Apartment? There was no apartment. At least, not that I knew about. I didn't sleep again that night. I lay in bed next to her, wondering if she had a second life entirely. A place. A space. Maybe even another identity. I thought about all the weekends she said she was going to those design workshops. I thought about the random new key I once found on her ring months ago that she dismissed as a spare to Mom's place. I started to wonder if Mira ever really existed at all. Because whoever this was sleeping next to me, this wasn't the woman I married. It was a stranger with my wife's face. And now that stranger had no idea I was about to find her secret address. I didn't confront her the next day, or the day after. I waited. That's something she never understood about me. Mira always thought my silence was weakness, that my hesitation meant submission. But in truth, I'm just a man who waits for the ground to turn soft before I plant the knife. I found the apartment through an online portal she forgot to clear from her browser history. It was subtle, just a tab titled Utilities. But when I hovered over it, the autofill preview showed a zip code I didn't recognize. One I knew wasn't ours. I reverse searched the utility account number. It led me to a modest, high-rise building on the east side. The kind that looks old on the outside but modern inside. The type Mira always called character with updates. She'd had the lease for 9 months. I drove there on a rainy Thursday. Same day of the week she usually stayed late at work or grabbed drinks with coworkers. I didn't bring anything. No weapon. No camera. I just needed to see it. To prove to myself that I wasn't going crazy. That I wasn't the paranoid husband she'd tried so hard to paint me as. The lobby was empty. No doorman. Just a busted call box with peeling labels. I typed in random apartment numbers until someone buzzed me in. I took the stairs, 4 flights, listening for footsteps, heart pounding with every step. Apartment 4B. It was quiet. The hallway had a strange smell. Not bad, just familiar. Lavender mixed with cheap paint. I'd bought that exact lavender diffuser from Mira's home office last spring. My fingers shook as I pulled the lockpick tool I'd ordered online from my sock. I had practiced for days on my old filing cabinet at home. This time, it took me 30 seconds. When the door opened, I swear the air felt heavier. It looked like a model unit. Sparse, clean, intentionally unfinished, like someone had tried to stage it, but gave up halfway. White walls, minimalist furniture, no family photos, no signs of life, at first. But then I saw the jacket on the back of the chair. Her jacket, the olive green one I hadn't seen since she claimed she left it at her sister's house. Next to it was a half-finished cup of coffee, still warm. This wasn't a backup apartment. This was home base. I moved carefully. There was a desk in the corner. Drawers locked, but I didn't need them. The laptop sitting on top was open. No password screen, just a spreadsheet. Dozens of entries. Names, dates, reference numbers. But what froze me wasn't the spreadsheet. It was the folder on the desktop labeled Exit Plan. I opened it. Documents. Dozens. Bank transfers. Identity forms. A draft email addressed to a firm in Belize about offshore recommendations. A scanned copy of my signature. Not a digital paste. A forged, physically signed version. From a form I'd never seen before. I scrolled faster. A document titled Post-Separation Financial Strategy, G.H. G.H. Gideon Halbier. I clicked, breath caught in my throat. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was her partner. And not in the romantic sense. Or maybe not only in that sense. This was calculated. Years in the making. She had been positioning me as the clueless husband in case things went to court. There were mock-ups of texts. She was staging emotional abuse. Screenshots I'd never sent. Conversations with herself using a second phone number under my name. She was building a story. Not just cheating. She was preparing to bury me. Financially, legally, reputationally. But here's the thing about ambition wrapped in secrets. It gets sloppy. And Mira made one mistake. She had a second phone charging by the nightstand. I picked it up. No password. Not even a lock screen. I don't know if she was distracted or careless or just didn't expect me to ever be this far into the rabbit hole. Messages. Most were from Gideon. Cold, transactional, precise. But buried between those threads was another name I didn't expect. Rowan. No last name. At first, I thought it was another accomplice. But the messages were different. Softer. Emotional. Panicked. You said this would be clean. He's asking questions. I can't lie to him much longer. I didn't want to hurt him like this. Then, I still love him. Even if I'm doing this. I dropped the phone. I sat on the edge of the couch, breathing hard, suddenly unsure who she was even talking about. Me? Gideon? Rowan? And then I remembered. Rowan was the name she once mentioned over dinner. Said it was her first real boyfriend back in high school. The only one who ever understood her. I hadn't thought about that name in over a decade. I stood in that apartment and realized I had absolutely no idea who Mira was. The version I married was a curated slice of a much larger, much darker story. And now that I had the receipts, the messages, the forged files, I had a choice to make. I could go to the police. I could go to a lawyer. I could confront her. But none of those options felt right. Because now it wasn't about catching her. It was about letting her believe she was still winning. And then taking everything when she least expected it. The thing about people like Mira is they're always waiting for an explosion. A confrontation. A dramatic crescendo where they can finally flip the script and say, "See? This is what I was talking about. You're the unstable one." It's what her whole operation was built on. A quiet, invisible campaign of framing me as the ticking time bomb while she strolled through life lighting matches behind her back. But I wasn't going to explode. I was going to smother her with silence. After leaving the apartment, I didn't storm home. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I went to a diner, ordered burnt coffee and dry pancakes, and started making lists on the back of a paper placemat. Names, steps, leverage points. This wasn't about love anymore. This wasn't about marriage or betrayal or even Gideon. This had become a chess match, and I had spent 13 years watching Mira's every move. She never knew I'd been paying attention, but I had. Every conversation she thought I forgot. Every bank login she assumed I couldn't trace. Every smug glance across the dinner table when she believed she was 3 steps ahead. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was her shadow. By Monday morning, the first phase of my plan was already in motion. I reached out to a friend from college, Devin, a cybersecurity analyst who owed me a favor after I covered his rent for 2 months back in 2008. I didn't tell him everything, just enough. I needed help tracking a digital paper trail Mira and Gideon had gone to great lengths to erase. And Devin was the kind of guy who could retrieve a deleted email from a toaster if you gave him 20 minutes and bad coffee. He got to work. In the meantime, I set traps. First, I called our shared bank and told them I suspected financial fraud on our joint account. I didn't accuse Mira. I simply requested that a monitoring hold be placed for unusual activity. I requested email alerts for login attempts. I also changed the secondary verification number to my burner phone, not hers. She wouldn't be notified, but I would. Then I reached out to a real attorney. Not a Gideon type, an actual bar-certified, ethics-bound, no-nonsense professional named Elise Maynard. She didn't blink when I laid it out. In fact, her expression didn't change at all when I told her about the forged signature and the offshore planning. She just asked me to send the evidence. When she saw the forged documents, she leaned back and said 5 words. "This isn't a divorce case." I didn't get it at first. "This is premeditated financial sabotage," she continued. "She's trying to strip you clean and position you as the aggressor. If she moves forward with this plan and then files with those forged records in place, you'll be the one scrambling to prove you didn't empty your own accounts. If this hits court the way she wants, you lose everything." But I had something Mira didn't. Time. She thought she had until the end of the month. She didn't know I'd already frozen the credit line. She didn't know I'd spoken to a forensic accountant. She didn't know I'd placed a private investigator at the parking garage outside her apartment, not to follow her, but to follow Gideon. And that's when everything cracked open. Because Gideon wasn't who he claimed to be either. Devin called me the next night and said, "You're not gonna believe this, man. Gideon D. Halbier isn't a lawyer. Not registered anywhere. In fact, he isn't anyone." "What do you mean?" "I mean," Devin said, "the ID he uses for utilities, email registration, even his burner phone. It's built off a dead man's identity. Guy named Halbier died in Arizona 6 years ago. Gideon stole his name. There's no legal person behind it. It's a ghost suit." My spine froze. I felt like I'd swallowed glass. "So what is he?" I asked. "Best guess? Blackmailer. Conman. Maybe worse." And Mira? Mira was either his accomplice or his next target. That's when the real twist hit me. What if she wasn't fully in control? What if she thought she was running the play, but Gideon was playing her, too? Suddenly everything made more sense. The offshore accounts, the fake identities, the emotionally manipulative texts I saw in that phone. Mira saying she still loved someone. That someone wasn't me. But it didn't sound like Gideon either. There was a fracture forming inside Mira's perfect blueprint, and I had no intention of stopping it. In fact, I was going to feed it. I called the phone number Gideon had used to text Mira from a restricted line and let it ring twice before hanging up. Then again, 15 minutes later. No voicemail. No answer. Just silence. But I knew how paranoid people like him operate. The second I appeared on his radar, even as a whisper, he'd start pulling strings. He'd panic, look for the leak, and when he did, he'd turn on her. The goal wasn't revenge anymore. It was collapse, and it was already starting. The beautiful thing about collapse is that it rarely looks like it does in the movies. No sirens, no shouting, no last-minute chases or screaming matches in courtrooms. It's quiet, like the sound of a door unlocking in the distance. A click, then a pause, and then a wave of realization you never recover from. By the end of that week, all the pieces had moved into place. I received the final report from the private investigator. Gideon wasn't just using a fake identity. He had a history. Short-term aliases, sudden disappearances, legal gaps. He'd done this before. Not always with women. Sometimes with aging couples. Sometimes with business partners. But always with the same pattern. Manipulation, access, withdrawal of funds, and then disappearance. He was the shark in still water. Mira just never realized she'd been bleeding from the start. So I did something simple. I forwarded the investigator's full report to Mira's work email, anonymously. Not to punish her, but to warn her. Because for all her lies, for all her betrayal, for all her gaslighting and planning and fake texts and cold smirks, I knew something she didn't. Something I had come to accept. She didn't love Gideon. She didn't love me, either. But she loved control. And now, she had none. That night, I came home and found her sitting at the kitchen table, pale, shaking, laptop open to the last page of the report. She looked at me like a child who just realized the monster under the bed had been real all along. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, voice like paper tearing. I just stared at her. Calm. Empty. Done. She tried to cry. It didn't work. I think even her tears had given up on her. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought I was in control." I finished for her. She nodded, and I said the last thing I ever needed to say to her. "You never were." I walked away before she could speak again. No yelling. No lectures. No goodbye note on the fridge. Just the soft sound of me placing the house keys on the counter and locking the door from the outside one last time. 3 months later, I was living in a new apartment. Not fancy, but mine. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I had a little studio space with bad lighting and peeling floor tiles, and I loved it. I woke up with silence in my ears and peace in my lungs. It wasn't loneliness. It was freedom. The divorce was uncontested in the end. Elise handled everything. Mira didn't push. I think she was too afraid of what else I might have. Gideon? He disappeared. Poof. Just like the report said he would. Maybe Mira learned something after all. Or maybe she didn't. I didn't follow up. I didn't care. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. One night, I stood in my tiny kitchen, barefoot, eating toast over the sink, and I laughed. Actually laughed. Not out of bitterness, but because I realized I had survived something I didn't even know was killing me. It wasn't the affair that broke me. It was the slow, invisible erosion of self. And now? Now I was rebuilding. One honest day at a time.